The store radio played a song the clerk remembered from childhood, but the singer's voice was wrong. It came in low and warbled through the ceiling speakers, the sound compressed and thin, like it had traveled a long way to get here. I was halfway through restocking the cigarette rack when I noticed it. Not the song itself, but the shape of it. A familiar melody, one I hadn't heard in years, something my mother used to hum while driving with the windows down. The tune should have been warm, rounded. Instead, the voice slid between notes, never landing where it should, as if the singer couldn't quite remember how the song went either. Outside, rain pressed steadily against the glass, turning the parking lot lights into smeared halos. The automatic doors hissed every few minutes, but no one came in. Midnight shifts were like that, long stretches of nothing punctuated by brief, awkward interactions. The store smelled faintly of burnt coffee and floor cleaner. The fluorescents buzzed overhead, flickering just enough to make the shadows between aisles feel thicker than they should have been. I turned the volume knob behind the counter, lowering the radio a notch. The song didn't get quieter. The meter moved, but the voice stayed exactly where it was, threaded through the store like a memory I couldn't shake. The singer reached the chorus and dragged it out, stretching syllables too long, vowels collapsing in on themselves. Sounded strained, as if someone were forcing their mouth to make the right shapes without knowing why. I told myself it was just a bad signal. The first customer came in around 12:30. He moved slowly, like he was counting his steps. Tall, thin, wearing a jacket damp at the shoulders. He didn't acknowledge me, didn't even glance at the counter. He walked straight to the beverage cooler and stood there, staring through the glass while the song continued its warped refrain. The voice hit a note it shouldn't have been able to reach. Cracked, then smoothed itself out, wrong in a way that made my scalp prickle. The man turned his head toward the speaker above the freezer aisle. He tilted it slightly, listening. His mouth opened a fraction, like he was about to sing along. Then he shut it and reached for a bottle of water. He brought it to the counter, placed exact change down without looking at me. "Anything else?" I asked. He blinked, like he'd forgotten where he was. His eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with red. "It's almost right," he said softly. I waited, but he didn't explain. He picked up his water and left, letting the door slide shut behind him. The rain swallowed his shape immediately. The song looped back to the verse. I leaned on the counter and listened harder, trying to pin down what was wrong. The instrumentation was fine. Tinny, sure, but intact. It was the voice that kept slipping. Sometimes it sounded too old, gravelly and tired. Other times it thinned into something almost childish. The phrasing changed each time, like the singer was improvising from memory. Halfway through the second play, the lyrics changed. Just one line. A word swapped out for another that didn't fit. I felt it more than heard it. A subtle lurch in my stomach, the way you feel when a stare is shorter than expected. I checked the radio. Same station. No interference. The digital clock read 12:47, its colon blinking steadily. The lights dimmed for half a second and came back brighter. Another customer entered. A woman this time, hair plastered to her face from the rain. She walked straight past the counter, shoes squeaking, and stopped in the center aisle. She stood there, unmoving, listening. The song reached the chorus again. The singer's breath hitched audibly before the first line, like a suppressed sob. The woman's shoulders rose and fell in time with it. "Are you okay?" I asked. She turned slowly. Her eyes were unfocused, glassy. "Do you hear it?" she asked. "The part that's missing?" Before I could answer, she flinched. The voice in the speaker dipped too low, distorted, stretching the melody into something unrecognizable. The woman clapped her hands over her ears and rushed out without buying anything, nearly colliding with the doors as they opened. I turned the radio off. The store fell silent except for the hum of refrigeration and the rain. Relief washed through me, short-lived. The song kept playing. Not through the speakers, through the store itself. It came from the aisles, from the back room, from inside my own head. Softer now, closer. I could hear the wet click of the singer's mouth forming words, the shallow, uneven breaths between lines. I backed away from the counter. "Stop," I said, feeling ridiculous. The chorus started again. This time, the lyrics were wrong enough that I recognized them. My name slid into the melody, drawn out and off-key. The lights flickered, then steadied. The automatic doors opened. No one stood outside. The song swelled, filling every corner of the store. The voice gaining confidence, strength, like it was learning as it went. I realized with a sick jolt that it wasn't remembering the song anymore. It was remembering me. I don't remember running, only reaching the door, only the cold rush of rain and the sound following me, warm and intimate, still singing even as the doors closed. When the morning clerk arrived, the radio was off. The store was empty. The clock blinked 12:47, frozen mid-shift. And faintly, beneath the hum of the lights, the song played on, waiting for the next voice to get it right. A woman asked to use the restroom, but the store didn't have one. That was the first thing she said to me, standing just inside the automatic doors while rain hammered the glass behind her. No greeting, no apology. Just that sentence spoken calmly like a statement of fact we both already understood. "I'm sorry," I told her. "We don't have a restroom." The words felt rehearsed. They always were. Night shift trained you to deliver refusals without thinking. The woman didn't react. She stood there dripping onto the mat, rainwater pooling around the toes of her shoes. Her coat was thin, dark with moisture, clinging to her frame. The fluorescent lights caught in her hair, turning the wet strands into pale wires against her face. Outside, the storm pressed close, loud and relentless. The parking lot lights blurred into yellow smears. Wind shoved rain sideways, rattling the trash cans along the curb. Inside, the store hummed and buzzed and flickered, an island of stale warmth and artificial brightness. "I just need a minute," she said. "I really can't." "I know," she interrupted, still calm. "You don't have one." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. They kept drifting past me, scanning the aisles, the ceiling, the back hallway behind the counter. The hallway customers never noticed because it led nowhere useful. Just the storage room, the electrical panel, a locked door marked employees only that hadn't been opened in years. "I can't let customers back there," I said, following her gaze. "I didn't ask to go back there." She stepped forward, shoes squeaking on tile, and I felt the space behind the counter suddenly too small. The air smelled sharper, like ozone, mingled with the sour tang of burnt coffee. "You sure you don't have one?" she asked again. "Yes." She nodded slowly, accepting that answer in the way people accepted bad weather. Then she walked past me, not toward the back hall, toward the aisles. I watched her move between shelves, trailing water, fingertips brushing the edges of candy bars and chip bags. She paused near the refrigerated section, shivering, and pressed her palm flat against the cooler door. The lights inside flickered, dimmed, then steadied. The storm outside surged, thunder rolling low and long. Cleared my throat. "You need to make a purchase or—" "I won't be long," she said without turning around. She drifted deeper into the store, footsteps soft, unhurried. I considered calling out again, but something about her certainty stopped me, like she'd already been granted permission by someone else. The radio played softly overhead, a late-night talk show bleeding static between stations. The host's voice warped occasionally, stretching syllables, then snapping back. I adjusted the volume knob. It resisted, stiff under my fingers, then turned too far. The sound cut out completely. The store felt larger without it. I watched the woman reach the far aisle, the one that always seemed dimmer than the rest. The fluorescent light above it flickered erratically, casting long, broken shadows that bent the shelves into unfamiliar shapes. She stopped at the end of the aisle and stood very still. "Ma'am," I called. She didn't respond. I left the counter, footsteps echoing too loudly in the quiet. As I approached, I noticed something odd. The floor was dry where she'd walked, the water gone as if it had never been there. "Ma'am," I said again, closer now. She turned. Her face looked tired. Not old, exactly. Just worn in a way that suggested long use. Her eyes flicked past me again, toward the back hallway. "There used to be one," she said. "Didn't there?" "No," I replied automatically. "There's never been." She smiled again, wider this time. "That's not what I remember." The light above us went out. Not a flicker, just gone. The aisle dropped into shadow, lit only by spillover from the adjacent rows. Her face became a pale oval floating in the dark. "I really can't help you," I said, backing away. "I know," she said. "You've already said that." Behind me, the automatic doors opened. I turned, expecting another soaked customer. No one stood there. Rain blew in, spattering the floor. The doors hesitated, then slid shut, sealing the sound back outside. When I looked again, the woman was gone. I stood alone at the end of the aisle, heart hammering. The light above flickered back on, steady now. No sign of her. No footprints. No water. I walked the aisles, calling out, checking behind displays, peering into the storage room. The back hallway felt colder than usual, the air stale and metallic. The locked door at the end, employees only, was slightly ajar. That stopped me. I was certain I'd locked it at the start of my shift. Certain because it stuck, because you had to lean into it to make the latch catch. A faint sound came from beyond it. Not footsteps, not voices. Running water. I stood there, listening, rain roaring outside, the store's hum pressing in. The sound from behind the door was unmistakable. A sink turned on, water hitting porcelain, splashing rhythmically. "That's not possible," I whispered. The door creaked open a few inches more. The smell hit me then. Dampness layered over something old, like mildew sealed behind walls. The hallway light flickered, casting the door's shadow long and warped across the floor. "I told you," the woman's voice said softly, from somewhere beyond the door. "It's always been here." I stepped back, shaking my head. "There is no restroom." Silence. Then the water shut off. The door swung open. Beyond it was not the storage room. Not the narrow concrete space with stacked boxes and humming machinery I knew so well. It was a hallway, long-tiled, lit by flickering fluorescent lights that receded into darkness. Doors lined the walls, identical, unmarked. At the far end, one door stood open. Light spilled out, warm and yellow. I didn't move. My feet felt rooted to the tile, like the store itself was holding me in place. "You should lock up," the woman said, her voice echoing faintly down the hall. I couldn't see her, but I knew she was there. "Storm's not going to stop." The radio crackled back to life overhead. Static. A voice murmuring, too low to understand. The automatic doors opened again behind me, rain surging in, wind howling. I turned, desperate for something familiar. The store stretched farther than it should have. Aisles elongated, shelves bending away, the counter distant and wrong, like a memory recalled imperfectly. When I looked back, the hallway door was closing. I ran for it, shouting, but my voice sounded muffled, swallowed by the hum and buzz and rain. The door shut with a soft click. The hallway vanished. In its place was the storage room wall. Solid, unbroken. The employee's only sign hung crooked, the latch firmly in place. The store lights steadied. The radio settled into a clear signal. The storm outside softened to a steady downpour. I stood there shaking, alone until my shift ended. In the morning, the day clerk asked why the floor was wet near the back hall. I didn't answer. I just locked the door behind me, certain, absolutely certain, that somewhere in the store, a restroom door was still standing open, waiting for the next person who asked.